Hey everybody, my name is Daryl and this is Dion.
Hello.
And welcome to Where We Stand. Today we're talking about Ghostrunner, which is available on the PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, surprisingly, and the PC. It'll be hitting next-gen consoles on September 28th. Now that we're queued up and ready to go, let's get started.
So for me, this is very new. I'm very new to the developer. I'm very new to the series. As the series is new, there hasn't been another game. So completely fresh in this experience.
And in my case, I'm familiar with 3D Realms, who are one of the developers on this project, but not the main developer, apparently, if I remember what you said right. But I am familiar with 505 Games. They are the publisher. They tend to, I don't know, they have a pretty wide selection of games that they've published. I haven't played a lot of them, but I played enough to be like, hey, I know those guys. Moving along, let's talk about the general story overview. In Ghostrunner, you play as, well, the Ghostrunner, Jack, as you come to know him, as he tries to remember who he is in Dharma Tower, a place of many dangers. Throughout the adventure, the Ghostrunner works to free the oppression of the people from the control of Mara, an enemy of the architect located inside of his head.
So for me, the story mostly comes in conversations with the architect who's in your head and the climber Zoe as they're reaching out to you, and even to some extent Mara towards the end when she's talking to you. So between the three different characters, you start learning about the world and everything you're doing and why you're doing it, because you kind of forgot why you were there. You had some amnesia, and now you're learning more about the world. You know, he's learning the world. As in Jack is learning the world as we are learning about the world, which it's really cool. It really actually does a really good job of building up the world, which I really didn't expect in this game.
Yeah.
It's just I really expected platforming, action, right? I expected the story to be pretty much basic, and I was very surprised by that.
They wasted no time getting that ball rolling.
Definitely. And then this even lets you build this taste, for different characters in the game. Especially Mara, who's your big enemy, and you don't even feel so sure about the architect the whole time. So I really thought they did a good job of making you feel a certain way just through those interactions and discussions.
Yeah. As for me, I felt the story overall was surprisingly good. A little predictable here and there, but very good in regards to execution. It was well executed for the amount of time you play the game, 7 hours. It's hard to tell an effective story in just 7 hours, but this game managed to do it. I really enjoyed the Ghostrunner, or Jack's character, as well with his banter with the architect. I didn't really get a good vibe for Mara, since Mara's not as prominent as you think, but that should be obvious what the kind of game this is. When you have an AI talking in the head of a machine and you're trying to decide, are you in control or am I in control? Who's in control of anything? That's the big question in the game, and I think it sums it up very nicely.
Let's go into the world design a little bit here. So in the game, you explore Dharma Tower's 3 sections: the lower industrial zone, the middle city and residential zone, and finally the top, which is more like a laboratory zone or research. Each portion has its own look and feel as you use your different techniques to parkour throughout the tower.
I found the level design to be pretty fantastic, but the world design needed help. It works great for gameplay when you are leaping from one platform to the other, to the next, zipping from one line to the other, to the next. You know how it is when it comes to platformers in general. But the world design gets very samey in appearance. Like, the first few levels are pretty bland after the wow factor wears off, but as Dion mentioned, the environments do change up later. I just think it happens a little too late in some cases, but that really depends on how quick you're moving through the game. Whether or not the fact that it changes all that often, or as often as you would like, is up for debate in regards to if it does the game any favors in that regard. Dion?
For me, the levels, similar to you, the levels were pretty good at because they worked well for gameplay, right? You could easily parkour your way throughout the world platform, get through different levels very easily, and it just laid out so well for that. But I do feel the world design left a lot to be desired. First of all, the first few levels, I remember talking to you, and we're like, wow, we're still seeing the same type of things. I wish we got to see the city. Exactly. And I did say I wish we saw the city, and And then all of a sudden we saw the city. I'm like, oh, finally. I don't know why they decided to take so long with that. It was very disjointing. But once you felt that there was more coming, you kind of got used to it, and it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
The three different sections for 17 levels, I felt was not enough. We needed more. Like, I wanted to know more about the tower. I was really hoping there was more to it. Is there more about the tower? I don't know. And I think that piece of it left me wanting something a little different from the world design perspective.
Yeah, and if it kept up the pace of, like, let's say they had about 5 sections for 17 levels, I think that would have been fine. That would have been the best case scenario for me, but for what they had, it just wasn't varied enough, and I agree. But moving on to the nitty gritty, we're going to talk about gameplay. So gameplay wise, it revolves around platforming through the environment while using techniques you gain over time to murder your enemies, because there are enemies in this platformer. In a way, the enemies aren't necessarily needed in a way, because the platforming is satisfying enough, but it is greatly appreciated that they're there. But the techniques that you do learn can be used for platforming and defeating your enemies along the way as you explore the tower from level to level, which always ends in an elevator. If you want to start that off, Dion.
It's in an elevator. It's not great world design, but it makes sense for the story.
Just get to the elevator.
So for me, I really want to talk about 4 different things when it comes to game design here. Or the gameplay. So character customization, I actually really liked the character customization because it was unique in a sense. You basically are using Tetris to define your character abilities. You have a certain square, and you can kind of put your abilities where you want, and you only can fit so many. I did feel like I couldn't fit a lot of them, and it required me to make a lot of decisions, which I didn't like that I had to make so many, but it was good. It's so good that it tests you and makes you decide on how you want your character to go. You might even have to change that up mid-level because you figure out, you know what? I don't have to fight that much this time. Maybe I should get something else. Right?
I did that later for the later levels for the boomy guys. I was like, no, I'm gonna dash away from all of you.
Exactly. No, I definitely switched my abilities for later boss fights as well. Especially the final one, I realized I didn't need to do a lot of fighting, so I switched to something else. So it's really cool, and I like how it lets you change it anytime, and how there's so many options, and it lets you tackle different sections of the game differently, which a lot of games are not good at doing. So kudos to them for that. The platforming, wow, just wow, how smooth and reactive it is. You play a lot of adventure games that try to have some platforming in them, Uncharted, Tomb Raider, and it's good, and then you play this and you're like, wow, that's platforming. Like, it's really it's really smooth, it's very reactive. When you intend to do something, it happens, and it's really based on your skill. You don't feel like you're being cheated or anything like that. It feels like you're actually making that move, and I really like that feeling. Combat. So the combat kind of blends in with the platforming, which kudos to them for that. Instead of making it very combat platform, it is very much combat and platform at one time, and it keeps pace with the platform, and that blends in so well. It tests your ability to use all the skills, so you're platforming and you have to use the skills, and they both get more difficult. Wow, that's perfect. That's exactly what you want to see, and it's really testing your ability to learn the game, and it's challenging throughout the whole thing. I think there's areas that are easier than others, but it actually challenges you while you're playing, and I that's a welcome change to some games, and it can be frustrating at times, definitely, but I think the end result is very good. And then a little bit about New Game Plus. I know that's important for some people, so I didn't play New Game Plus, but at the end it does say that you can play a second time, and it unlocks all your abilities that you have, but it reshuffles where enemies are. It pulls in some of the harder enemies to lower levels, and it kind of reshuffles the level in some places a little bit, to give you a new feel throughout the game. So you're playing the game for 6 hours, but this adds an additional few hours to your gameplay experience, so you can get even more out of the game than we're anticipating. Daryl, how'd you feel about gameplay?
I felt a lot of the same things that you felt about the gameplay. But I will say that for me, the gameplay is very satisfying when you enter that flow state you get when you're killing enemies and nailing jumps, and you kind of feel like an actual ninja or Spider-Man, to be fair. And by flow state, for those of you who aren't very familiar with that term, it's just that state you get when you're so zoned in that everything kind of just happens. I don't want to say automatically. You know the state I'm talking about, right, Dion?
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of just in the zone. That's what it is. You're just in the zone. You jump, you kill, you do this, you do that, and then you hit the ground and you realize what you did. And you're like, wait, did I do that? Yes, you did. People were trying to get your attention while the house was burning down, but you were in the zone. That's flow state. That said, because you can die in a single hit, the game definitely forces you to have patience and think before you leap. Because of that, I got stuck on some bosses here and there. There's one in particular that Dion and I both dread. that wasn't really even a boss fight against an actual person. We were more like fighting a security system, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, the stupid Amida station with let's just say there was a lot of dodging, a lot of jumping, and a lot of falling, and checkpoints, as great as they are sometimes in this game, they're not as strong as they could have been. But I understand that's mostly because they want you to get good at platforming and get good at jumping. So if you die very far down the line, like say in that boss fight when you're trying to scale up the station, then they're going to start you at the bottom because they want you to get it right. And that could be a good or bad thing. That depends. All I know is that after you nail it, it all starts clicking, and then you're not going to be making mistakes like that again. So I will say that if you're interested in the game, you got to have that kind of patience. The game does slow down a bit when you get to the learning those techniques, because when you learn those techniques in the game, you enter this space where you essentially can't platform. Well, you can platform, but you can't use the abilities you use outside of that space. I call it the hacking space. I don't remember what it's actually called, but it's essentially where the architect tells you about your abilities, you get some lore, and you're doing some puzzle solving. The puzzles are very simple, but they're not the mainstay in the game, so I'm not gonna knock them too much for it. I do just think that those sections are get rid of the momentum that you have in the adrenaline rush from running from level to level, and then you really start platforming with just jump from here, jump from there. Okay, this is a puzzle room. Jump from this section to that section. Good job. You know, it gets a little mundane there, but overall, the gameplay is very engaging and punishing. But thankfully, when you die, you can respawn just with hitting F. Press F to pay respects. You can not jump. You can restart pretty easily with just by pressing R, and it'll shoot you right back there, no loading screen. So it's responsive, at least in that sense, where if you mess up, just hit R, you'll be back to where you were.
Yeah, very good on the gameplay. Let's give our final thoughts here. So Ghostrunner is a very smooth and fun gameplay experience, for sure, no question there. It is obvious that's where they spent most of their time, and that's what they care about for the game. That was the goal, and they nailed it. And then the story was also a surprise and keeps you engaged throughout. I do feel the samey world can get a little boring at times, but the gameplay definitely carries you through the levels. And in addition, how the levels kind of variably challenge you, like how things change throughout the experience, also keeps you going and keeps you flowing through that game. Game is very much worth playing if you have a good 6 hours, at least for the first run through. You can even go further and do challenge modes to truly test your skills. You can challenge your friends and figure out who's the fastest, who can beat the levels the fastest. And I think
Dion and I went back and forth a lot.
Yes, we did. And I think we're good at different things. So I think, based on that, I can highly recommend that this game is worth trying.
And as for me, the game is definitely worth the money and has a lot of replayability, including unlockables that you can find if you really explore certain levels that have more of that exploration element to them. You get a great story with some fun gameplay, and you best believe I'm going to watch a speed run as soon as we're done recording this, because it's that kind of game.
I think that's all we got for now. Thank you all for stopping through to listen here at DuoQ. If you think we might have glossed over something, feel free to say so in the comments. Don't forget to share and leave a like. Next time you're waiting for a party or searching for a lobby, feel free to tune in again while you wait. See ya.
Bye, guys. And you know what? It's funny. This game does Cyberpunk better than Cyberpunk did. It's kind of weird.